Hi, this is Di, the bass playing mom. I quit the youth group. Let's talk about it. So I played bass in the youth ministry at our church for 15 years. And I didn't come about it the normal way. I wasn't like, oh, I was a child in youth group and I want to pay back by serving. No, I think I went to youth group twice. I don't even think they had it at my church. I visited a church that had a youth group. I, in fact, didn't know Jesus personally until I was much older, like 2021. I was a little bit too old for youth group at that point. Later, when my kids were in elementary school, I started playing bass in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade ministry. And as each of them moved up into middle school, I stayed behind and continued to play in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. But then the call went out in the bulletin at our church that they were looking for musicians to serve with middle school. And so I figured out a way that I could play in elementary school one Sunday and then in middle school the next, and just kind of alternated like that for a while until it was just too much to be playing every single service. And so I moved over to middle school full time, and part of that time I played for high school too, and then just middle school, and then they combined middle school and high school. So I'm just going to call it youth ministry. Oh, I even planted a church and was the head of the youth groups. But that only lasted for about 10 months for me. Not the best thing for me. But I have been involved with youth group 15 years. Now, most people do not stay that long. They don't. They wait. Their kids graduate high school and they're like, hey, I don't have to serve in the youth group anymore, and they quit. I never did. I just stayed. It was kind of funny because when I had started, I told the kids, middle school band director, I said, I'm starting to serve in youth ministry. And he said, oh, watch out, you'll get hooked. He's still there. He never went up to high school. He didn't want to play band gigs at night, or what is it, basketball? Like they have to play all the football games and basketball games. And he was like, no, I'm out. Yeah, and right about the time that I started playing in middle school, the administration person for the youth group, she sat me down and had a meeting with me, and she said, you know, in the past we've done this outreach called P3, Pray, Pursue, Persuade. And that's a ministry where we do maybe a game and then a guest band or musical artist plays. And then we have a really short sermon to tell the kids about Jesus. And so she asked me, she said, well, you're connected with a lot of bands. Could you get a band in once a month to do P3? I ended up doing it for a long time. I don't have a lot of video from those days, but I have a lot of group pictures of me with the youth group and in different bands. We always did a theme that night. So it'd be like, oh, it's neon night, or it's hipster night. They were silly. There was country night. We did a whole ton of those P3s. And I did them up until my health didn't let me do it anymore. In middle school, we would have 125 people there, including youth and adults, 150. So it was a lot of people, a lot to manage, but it was fun. And I got to learn about all the idiosyncrasies of working with bands. I've had to ask myself, like, why did I play bass for a bunch of middle schoolers for so long, and high schoolers and their leaders? But why did I do it for so long? One of the things was that there was more variety to the music. Because when I play in a main service, the music isn't necessarily as rambunctious. But when you're trying to keep a bunch of middle schoolers who are kind of like Tigger bouncing around, some bouncy songs are good. So we got to play a lot more fun songs, a lot more electronic-based songs. It's just a bigger variety. And so I really did like getting to play more of a variety of music. I got to influence younger musicians. Our electric guitar player in the main service, his little brother was learning to play drums. So he was in 8th grade. Time he played drums, and I got to play bass. And I was watching him, and I was trying to kind of cue him what to play. And his brother said to him, follow Diana, follow Diana. I don't know if I would give that advice to everybody, but it was really fun. I had another drummer who had been like a local musician, but he had never had to really lock in before. When I started playing with him, I did a lot of like looking at his foot to see where he was hitting the kick drum so I could lock in on the same rhythm. And he found himself changing the rhythm he was hitting just to make it easier for me to lock in. So we influenced the other person's playing. So that was really cool. Being able to have an influence and impact on younger musicians. I mean, even just the other bass players, even though we didn't play at the same time, but going and watching them play and getting to support them, that was really cool part of youth ministry for me. I also found that young people are more emotional. I don't know if you ever noticed, but they also tend to get more engaged in worship. That intensity, that really paying attention, singing at the top of their lungs, watching the music really have an impact on them, that meant a lot to me. Also, because I stayed for so long, it almost became holy ground. I could remember all of the great things that had happened in that room, on that square of coffee-stained carpet. I knew that God was going to do those things again. And I felt like it kept me keenly aware of my relationship with God and checking myself because of being in that room where so many people had drawn close to God. I do think it helped me to grow spiritually. I do recommend youth ministry for people that are maybe newer Christians sometimes, because you go through a lot of the old stories and you can get caught up. I heard sermons midweek for 15 years. By serving in youth ministry, I got to be refreshed and hide God's word in my heart 2 times a week instead of 1. It also helped me to get my mind off myself, no matter what I had going on the rest of the week. Once I got in that room, I had to solely focus on the students in front of me. They needed me completely engaged. You take your mind off the prize and they're throwing cups of water, or you suddenly see food flying across the room. You got to keep yourself engaged. And so I think that was really an advantage to being there too, is that I had to be keenly aware. It's what do they call it? Mindfulness. It was very mindfulness based. Some of the biggest changes in 15 years of youth ministry were the vernacular changed. We went from junior high to middle school. The names of the youth groups I served in changed over the years. So I served in Thrive, Awake, and Alive. What was the other? Youth group. It changed to be student ministries. We stopped really calling them kids or teens or youth and started using the term students to mean 6th through 12th grade. One of the great things that changed over the years was the kids stopped stealing so much. At the beginning, man, you kept your eye on your purse, you kept your eye on your wallet. One of the youth pastors said his cell phone was stolen 6 times. Not the same one. He kept buying new ones. And that changed a lot. Towards the end, one time, I just totally spaced out and left my purse in the front row and found it at the end of the night, and nobody had taken anything out of it. All my money, my credit cards. I think the kids are better off financially. They don't need my crummy old cell phone anymore because they've got better phones of their own. And that was another thing that changed. When I started out, a lot of kids didn't even have phones. And we used to take their phone away. If they had it out and they weren't paying attention, we would take away their phone. Now we would never dream of taking a $1,000 cell phone, but it was $75 for a little flip phone, right? So that was a lot different. That changed. When they went to the restroom, we used to hold their shoe so they didn't take off out the back door, because nobody will leave in just one shoe. But I can't imagine sending the kids to use a public restroom or semi-public restroom without their shoes now. That changed. I felt like we had to be a lot more aggressive to get kids to listen. I remember one of the youth pastors I worked with, if the kids were getting kind of talking and not paying attention during the sermon, he would jump up on the chair next to the young person and they would get quiet. This group of kids today, they don't need you to be so aggressive. I know the kids were getting kind of squirrely and not paying attention. And the current youth pastor sat them down and told them why it was really important that they engage and pay attention, and they were doing this for them. And and that this youth group was only going to be as good as they made it, which is just an intellectual leap that we would not have made 15 years ago. One particularly rough time in youth group was when the pandemic hit in 2020. We live near Seattle, which was one of the first areas to be, to record the first patient with COVID-19. I remember I had youth group on Sunday, the first or second Sunday in March, right at the beginning. I remember standing around thinking, well, it's really going through older people, so hopefully I'm safe here with all these young people. We did one last Sunday and we were shut down after that, and we didn't get to play for months. Middle school ministry was one of the first things we brought back as soon as we were allowed to have church meetings again. Those poor parents locked in the house for all those months. And those poor kids. As soon as I got the call that we were starting, I said, yep, I'm all in. What do I have to do to support this? And I made sure I was out in front of that church building, greeting every kid as they come in and greeting their parents and making people feel welcome. Well, we had a parent that was immunocompromised. And so we made a real effort to not have it spread through the youth group. And so that meant we wore masks. We sat 6 feet apart. It was weird, but it was right. We did the right thing. We got those kids in. We kept that parent safe. She never got sick. We really tried. It's one of the things I can say about the pandemic that I can look back on and say, hey, at least we did the right thing. We got those kids back together as soon as we could, the best way that we could. So in 2022, a bunch of things changed in the main service, which I'll talk about later. So I made the decision that I was going to step down from youth group. However, there were only 2 bass players, and I didn't want to leave her in a position where she had to play every single Wednesday. I hung on. And I kind of hung on like a couple of months at a time. Like, oh yeah, I know it was October of 22 and I said, I'm going to be quitting. And finally, I got a text in July, I think, of 2023 saying, so you said you were leaving. When's your last Wednesday? I decided to have my last Wednesday going to youth group was going to be the last Wednesday before camp, because I knew if I stayed until the kids came back all wired from summer camp, I would never leave. So I knew it was coming, and I had my last Wednesday on worship team. And it was really hard for me to say goodbye. And August was kind of crazy. My daughter was getting married in September. I was scheduled for surgery. And so they prayed for me before I left and the surgery. And if you know me, that's been rough. I'm still not really over the surgery. I'm still in some pains. It meant a lot to be able to say a proper goodbye, to finish something right, that they could walk me to the door, and I kind of graduated. Even though I am gone from the ministry now, I still run into the students. A lot of them are grown up, and like when I find out they're still playing their instrument or they're still in church and stuff, it's really, really encouraging to me. In fact, even where I play now on Sunday mornings, I'm playing with folks that I played with in youth ministry. We're all a little bit older now. What do I miss the most? I miss learning the sets, because we always had some fun songs, more unique songs, some crazy songs with hand motions and everything. I miss the students. I miss getting to know them. I miss watching them worship. I miss the leaders, because being a youth leader was like instant friendships. Like, okay, you guys are all going to be buddies now because you're doing this thing together. I miss that. And I do still miss hearing a midweek sermon, because I don't know about you, but I can start out on a really good spiritual note, and then as the week goes by, it kind of winds down. And so having that midweek lift is really good for me. What do I not miss? I don't miss the physical part of it. I counted once and I was on my feet for 3 hours every night we had youth group. And so that is a lot of time. I was a door greeter. I helped with small groups. If there was food to be dished out or something to be cleaned up, I tried to do it. So there wasn't a lot of standing around for me. I had slowly moved away from the game times. One of the youth, who's a grown person now, he hit me in the head with a ball, and I looked it up online, and because of my medical condition, that could kill me. So being in a youth group with all the kids running around and doing all the crazy things, I had to be careful because I didn't want to get hit in the head with a ball. So I don't miss that physical side. It was pretty intense. And sometimes I don't miss learning the set. I found that I've got a whole bunch more time because I'm not trying to learn 2 sets in the same week. I'm just learning for Sundays. There is this saying in church culture that, oh, the youth. They are our future. They're the future church. And in a way, you have to think about that when you're there, like, oh my gosh, these people are going to be in charge. Like, I've literally seen kids turn into adults to being leaders and on staff. Like, I've seen that over the years. Yeah, they're the church of the future, but what they're doing now in youth group is still church today. So they're not just the church of the future, they're church now. Anyway, I would love to hear from you down below. Have you ever served in a youth group? Do you have middle schoolers or high schoolers at home? Are you in middle school or high school? Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you think. Would you play bass for middle schoolers and high schoolers? And right here is another video about how I became the bass playing mom. And down here is a video that YouTube picked out just for you.